Welcome back to the Profit Builder. Thanks for being here today. This is our next video in the series on how to plug the profit leaks in your contracting business. And today we're going to be talking about, in the accounting side of your operations, how do you have good feedback in place that allows you to have more control and better visibility about what's actually going on your projects. And today I'm interviewing Diane Gilson with Info Plus Accounting. She is the premier expert on this topic, and I'm glad to share this information with you. Diane is going to share with you some tips and resources that are going to really help you get more control over how information flows within your construction business and how to get better feedback so that you can have more clarity and more confidence to be able to take more powerful actions. And I'm super excited to have my guest, Diane Gilson with Info Plus Accounting, here with me today. You are going to find out some great information about how to do job costing and have that be a great tool in your business so that you can increase your profitability. But before I jump in, Diane, thank you so much for being here as a guest today.
Oh, great, Vicki. I'm glad to be here. You and I have known each other for quite some time.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
So Diane and I know each other. Like Diane says, we've known each other for several years, and we currently are in a mastermind group together for construction consultants mastermind group. And I have gotten to know Diane even better as we've been part of that group. Diane is one of the most knowledgeable people I know about construction accounting and about job costing, and is a treasure trove of great tools and resources to help you get better information out of your QuickBooks. But and one key thing that we're going to, like I said, talk about today is we're going to talk about job costing and about how do you have job costing work for you to increase the profitability of your business. So Diane, I know we came up with a few questions, but I think, a good place to start would be, well, first of all, before I jump into my questions, would you just share with people a little bit more information about you, your background, and then I'll jump into my questions.
Oh, sure. Well, I got into accounting as a bookkeeper for the Honor Society of Phi Kappa Phi many years ago. I'm not going to say how many. And then I ended up working in an accounting firm and earned my CPA. I was in banking for 13 years, where I became a certified internal auditor. And then ultimately moved over into more on the financial management and product line costing in the bank. Okay, and it was a decent sized bank. And so I did that for 13 years and then started my company in 1994. Have always loved management accounting, even when I was doing audits and taxes and so on. I like the management side. And so when I started my company, I decided, I love the management accounting side. And about the third day that I'd been in business, I was out at a networking event, and one of the ladies there said, well, hey, are you going to go over to the Home Builders Association? Those guys really need your help. My husband's a contractor and I have to do his books, but gosh, so many of them don't really know what they're doing on that side of the business. And so I said, well, let me check. And I found out I loved working with contractors, and just they're so straightforward. Plus they're also systems oriented. So they're perfect lineup with the kinds of work that I like to do and love working with them. So
awesome. That's funny. You and I have some similarities in our path. One of the things I really appreciate about you and your perspective is that there are a lot of people out there who do training on QuickBooks, who know accounting, but they don't necessarily know management accounting. And what I appreciate about you is your perspective from a leadership and a business owner and a management point of view about why is it important to do all that stuff? Why is it important to do job costing? Like, how does it really affect the overall success and profitability of your business? Not just how to do bookkeeping, cut checks, and and file tax returns, right? So I love that about your perspective and how to use this as a tool, your QuickBooks as a tool and job costing as a tool from a management and a leadership point of view. So let's jump into my first question. It has to do with job costing. So there's a lot of people who do job costing. There's more people who don't do job costing. And then there's people who sort of do job costing, but don't necessarily do it fully. But for those people who maybe don't really understand why they do it completely or don't do it at all and don't see the benefit, can you just speak for a minute about what's the benefit? Why does somebody want to do job costing?
Okay, well, job costing is something that helps you monitor what's going on in your business while it's happening. And as you look to the future. Okay, so, typical CPA work is after the fact. We just want to get your numbers in. We want to get your taxes in. By then, it's too late to do anything about what's going on in your business. Okay, and so job costing is about looking at what's happening on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis in your business and on specific jobs. And so the ability to control what's going on as it's happening, okay, before it's too late to do anything about it. And then, finding out where the leaks are and how can you fix those, and where are things just not working as you planned on them working. So that's it. It's a current and future view. So then you can, after the fact, okay, so sometimes you can control things as they're happening. Sometimes you find out you can't, okay, maybe something unplanned happens, but then you can also use that information as you wrap up a job, is to say, well, where are the issues and how can we fix those on a rolling forward basis? So it's a continual improvement process as you move forward.
So I'm going to just repeat back what I think I heard you say and tell me if I missed something, Diane. But one of the things you said is being able to really see what's happening on your jobs and manage job costs real time, so that you're not always just looking in the rear view mirror. My words, I get that. But looking at what happens a lot of times is people look at the results after it's already happened, whereas job costing real time gives you the ability to see, hey, what's happening on my job real time? And am I on track or off track to what I estimated those hours to be, let's say, or those costs to be? And then, as you say, being able to see to the future, to be able to then go, okay, how can I, if I've budgeted 100 hours and I've burned through 50, but I'm only 30% of the way through, then how am I going to get back on track? Do I have a change order that I need to file that I haven't, right? Is there some way for me to be able to make up that shortfall? So I end up making the profit that I wanted on my project in the end. Right. And then I think the other thing that you talked about is using that information to better run our businesses go forward, right? Excuse me, being able to use your job costing information for better estimating, so that the next time you do a job like that, you can look at it and go, oh, that really took 100 hours and 150 hours, let's say, and I've been estimating 100. So that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, you can do all sorts of analysis. You can say, well, if something went wrong, I mean, of course, if something went right, that's great. You want to keep doing that. But if something went wrong, where? Okay, was it a problem with the estimating? Was it a problem with how the process was done? Was it an issue with the person supervising the job, or maybe because they weren't fully prepared, they had to make extra trips to go buy little things here or there? So it gives you the tools to really do a deep dive into what's going on. And the more you learn about it, it creates that feedback loop, so you can continue to fix things and modify things. So, and getting the estimates in, I have a lot of people, I talk to them and I say, well, do you do estimating in QuickBooks? And they say, oh yeah. And I go out and look, and the only estimates I see are what they're planning to charge. Okay. So for sure, you want to get your estimated costs in, so you can see how you're doing against those costs.
Yeah. And have that comparison. Yeah. When you talk about, so I know one of the other things that you talk about is that ability to use that information, not just to control costs during the process, but you also talk about the ability to be able to use that data to better market or better target your ideal jobs after that. Can you just speak to that a bit?
Yeah, sure. Well, if you sit down and you start looking at different kinds of jobs, okay, and we can set a particular field in QuickBooks depending upon what you want to check. Maybe you're looking at different sizes of jobs, or maybe you're looking at locations, or maybe you're looking at, maybe you're a builder who's doing different elevations. Okay. If you can identify that and see which of those things are most profitable, then you've got some good information. And if you see which things are least profitable, you've got good information. And the things that are least profitable, then you say, I've got two choices. I can either see what I can do to fix the results. Okay, what's wrong and how do I fix it? Or, you know what? We love doing these kinds of jobs. We stay profitable. We have fun doing them. And then these other ones are just what we call a PETA job. Okay, you guys know what that means. And so why keep doing them? You know, why not market for the ones that are the most profitable? And you can shift your whole mix. And also when you start deciding you want a niche, guess what? You get to charge more, okay? Because you become more expert in a particular arena, and you become not only an expert, you become more efficient, proficient, etc., which lets you raise your prices. And it also helps you to decrease cost because now you're in a process, okay, that you can repeat, a repeatable process.
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate what you're saying about that. I had a, as I'm listening to you, the thought that just keeps coming to mind is that whole thing of when we have greater clarity, we have more confidence. And when we have more confidence, we can take more powerful actions. And to the point that you're making, I had a painting contractor that the first couple of years that we started working together, they started doing job costing and tracking their jobs and tracking where did those jobs come from? Was it for a designer? Was it a GC? Was it, a homeowner direct? And after the first year of doing that, we started digging and analyzing the data. And it turned out that they realized that designer jobs and homeowner jobs were where their sweet spot was and where they made their most high profitability. And then we even dug down a little bit further and went, oh, it's like these size jobs, these type jobs. And as you just pointed out, so first of all, they started marketing to get those type of jobs. And then as you just pointed out, they actually also started to get more efficient and more increasing their gross profit margin on those types of jobs because they charged really well for that work, but they also were super efficient at that work. And them being really efficient at that work meant that they could increase their margin. So yeah, there's a really good point to what you're talking about in terms of having that data analyzed to be able to have that greater clarity so that you have more confidence so that you can target and take better actions that are going to let you be more profitable as a contractor. So one of the things that I see happens a lot of times is that people will start job costing and they'll, instead of doing it by cost code or item, right? So cost code is a phase or a task of work. And in QuickBooks, it's what they call items, right? So sometimes what I'll see is that people will say, well, they're job costing, but they will actually just be job costing by materials, labor, subcontractor. It's not actually by item number. Just speak to that for a little bit about why that system doesn't work and what's a way for people to start to, if there's people listening here, right, who maybe that's how they've been doing job costing, or again, for those who haven't, maybe speak to how do you start to, because it can be a little daunting. Oh, like there's all these items or all these cost codes. Like, what's a way to go from something super, either A, not doing it, or super simple of just by cost type? Maybe speak to why that's not a good way to do it. And then maybe speak to what's a way to start to do it that's like a simple bite-sized piece for people.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think what you're talking about is something I refer to as blob accounting. So we're just going to throw all the materials for this job out here. And then, afterwards, and even if you said, well, I plan on spending $120,000 on materials here. And now, oh gosh, I looked and in fact, I spent $150,000. Well, where's the problem? I mean, you're going to have to dig through all sorts of things trying to find out what's the issue. Whereas if you can get that into your estimate broken out by, materials for framing, materials for the deck, materials for the kitchen, etc., Then you can see if the numbers aren't coming in the way you expect them to, you can see where it is pretty quickly, right off the bat. So splitting things up into the job stages, okay? And for some people, if you're just starting, well, maybe you only have, think of 10 stages to your job. I mean, you know, if you're doing a remodeling job or a custom home, you all know that there are a lot more stages than that. Okay, but start somewhere. Okay, the items then in turn link back into the chart of accounts. So in fact, your chart of accounts is your foundation. Okay, and then I like to think of the chart of accounts as the foundation, and then the items are the framing. Okay, you got to put your framing. If you're a builder, you got to tie the framing back into the foundation, right? And then you start putting all of the other systems in place, you know, electrical and HVAC and so on. So your items are kind of, you know, the really big structural, the foundation is a chart of accounts. The items is a big piece of the framing. Okay, and then getting into more detail would be more like the systems that you put into a home. So every company, I mean, there are some standard lists that are out there of job stages that people can look at and then decide how detailed do they want to get. I'd say when you're starting out, don't get too detailed, okay, because you can make yourself crazy, but don't go real simple where you're just tracking materials, unless it's just a really simple little job, you know, maybe you're building a deck or you're doing a repair or something. So having a good solid chart of accounts where you can see your income, and then you use, in QuickBooks, they call it cost of goods sold. Okay, kind of an old term that comes out of retail, but basically those are your production costs. And then, you know, seeing the results for individual jobs after you subtract off the costs is going to give you your gross profit. And of course, Vicki, with your book, you talk a lot about managing to your gross profit. So how important that is.
Yeah. So thank you. So if when people are trying to decide on what items or what cost codes to use, as you say, there's standards out there. There's CSI cost code standards that if you're a builder or an architect tend to, you know, use that. It's a very long list. But there's a way to, as you say, depending on the size of your company, simplify that. And so the list, so part of what you're saying is start out with something simple and things that are logical based. I like your analogy of, you know, the foundation is your chart of accounts. That's materials, labor, subs, equipment, other. And then as you're building on the foundation, you know, you've got framing, you've got electrical, you've got plumbing, all, you know, HVAC, all those. So I like that analogy. So even if you just took those simple cost codes and make sure, as if I heard you correctly, you want to make sure that your estimate is broken out by that way, and then you're going to job cost. So one of the distinctions I also heard you make is however you estimate it is how you want to job cost it as well, so that that information can be compared one against the other, right?
Exactly.
Important point. So for somebody who like, so one of the things that I hear people talk about a lot of times is the whole thing of getting employees to do job costing and the challenge of getting them to track their time. Do you have some suggestions or ideas for people about how they can, like what you've seen has worked as you put in job costing systems with companies? What are some ways that you've seen have worked really well in terms of making that transition of getting employees to track their time and job cost?
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of structure, you know, we do have a pre-built template for QuickBooks that people can get different levels of detail. Okay. On the item side, and everything's all tied back into the chart of accounts and so on. But of course, people can learn how to do this themselves. You know, there's always the easy way and the hard way, but in whichever direction you choose to go, you can get there. When it comes to getting employees to track their time, you know, I think it's becoming a lot more common since I started working with people to have employees track their time. Obviously now we've got automated systems where they can put their time in on their phone. I mean, it always used to be, I'd tell people, okay, for your time cards, print them out on cardstock, and, you know, because they're going to be floating around in somebody's truck. And so just give them a clipboard, put that thing on there, and then get them to write it down as they go. I think the big thing is to introduce, if people haven't been tracking their time, you kind of need to introduce it gently. You need to tell them why they're going to be doing it. Give them a date at some point, you know, say next month, we're going to start doing this. Give them a little bit of mental adjustment time. Okay. And then kind of get them trained and then follow up. And it's a nurturing process. And there are some old school employees out there that are going to give you a really hard time, and you just finally have to figure out who's the boss. You know, tell them, yeah, well, this is the way we do things here now, and we need to have you get on board. You know, so sooner or later, most people will come along. I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but
Well,
there's
actually,
a
that's
mental
part of it,
transition.
and I do,
You know?
yeah. So that's great. So I have a couple, another like follow-up question. But part of what you're saying is, first of all, be clear about what the codes are that you're going to use. Second of
Absolutely.
all, implement a system for actually like figure out how you want people to track their time. So you spoke to, as you said, old school like cardstock time cards, but then now there's automated systems. I'm going to ask you about that in a second. More automated ways to do that. But
Sure.
then give them some adjustment time, tell them what's coming, and then train them on it, and then make sure to follow up on it, right? Like every week, because it takes people time, right? People, we don't like change, just in our nature as human beings, right? First of all. Second of all is that people are going to find out if you're serious about this change. So part of it is that being consistent and going, you know, hey, I don't have time tracked. You need to give me your time tracked. One other little thing I'm going to throw in there that I've seen, and you've probably seen this a lot too, Diane, is that people who do their time cards once a week, or God forbid, every other week, it's pure fiction. Like, I don't know about you, but for all of my life, and I've been tracking my time for well over 30 years, that the only way that you can know what you did yesterday is to have tracked it yesterday. But certainly if you ask me a week from now what I did, I would tell you I have no idea, right? So tracking it every day, super important. So maybe having a feedback system like that every day.
Well, that's the value of the automated system, of course, is if they're putting their time in.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's several out there. So we actually, on our site, I've got a couple of webinars that we've done recently. Busy is a popular one. Another one is a little simpler, called Minute 7. So there are a number of time tracking systems out there that you can look at.
And do both of those integrate with QuickBooks?
Yes, they do.
Okay, Busy, and what was the second one?
Minute 7.
Minute 7. I'll make sure to put that information at the bottom of the screen of the video.
Yeah, and T-Sheets converted over to QuickBooks Time, and at some point they may be back up to speed. Okay, at this point, I'm not, even though I'm a solution provider for Intuit, at this time, I'm not recommending that, although there are some people in it and are working with it. But you know, if you're new, I suggest one of those other two, and you can go out and watch webinars on our site about those programs. Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. So with employees, find an automated system that's easy to use. Be clear about what you want them to track in terms of cost codes, train them on it, and then follow up and make sure that that's being captured every day. And the automated system is the best way to do that. Cool.
Right. And even then, depending on the kind of work you're doing, in some cases you can have, let's say you send a team out, maybe you're a roofer, okay, and you send a team out, then the supervisor can fill it in because the whole team is doing, you know, a particular job or a stage of a job. So,
yeah,
you know, that's another option in some cases.
Okay, great. Good. Thank you.
Okay.
So in terms of job costing overall, your recommendation is A, do it. B, you want to do it because it's going to allow you to have better control over jobs during the time that you're doing the job, so that you can see how you're doing compared to how you estimated jobs. Again, making sure that those item numbers what you're tracking in cost compared to your estimate, that those items line up. And that being able to have job costing information lets you increase your profitability on jobs because you have more control during the job process, but also afterwards, that ability to be able to analyze the data and use it to better target your ideal jobs in the future is super helpful. And so so you just shared like how to get job costing kind of kick started, right? One is start to put those estimates in QuickBooks by item number. And then for sure, start tracking your employees. You gave some great ideas about how to start getting employees to track by that. And we'll share those links to your site where people can watch those videos and check out those different tools to see which one they think will work better for them. You obviously have a number of clients who use those tools. I do as well. And I have found that I've got clients who have laborers who use it and they use it just fine. So, you know, even the old school guys can learn new things. And I think that we have automated time card tracking is just such a great thing. And that it's so nice that it integrates with QuickBooks so well. Thank you. This has been super helpful. I think that, you know, if you're listening or you're watching this and you've not done job costing before, by all means, make sure to go check out the links and check out, you know, more on Diane's site. Diane is like the expert in terms of QuickBooks and job costing and has a lot of really great videos in there and other trainings on the topic of job costing and how to integrate that into your business. One thing I know that you have, Diane, so you have a camp program that's about helping people sort of navigate their way through this process. Can you just talk a little bit about that? And then the link will be below too and in the show notes.
Okay. Yeah, that's our acronym, okay? TMA, too many acronyms, right? It stands for the Construction Accounting and Management Program, and it's designed on all different levels, anywhere from somebody who's really a total beginner all the way up through people who have already made their way quite a ways down the job costing path. So there's everything from what we call essentials all the way up to advanced topics. And some of them are also higher level, okay, from the owner standpoint. But a number of online video trainings with handouts. We actually have over 90 classes out there, and they're not little 5-minute videos. Some of them are 18, 20 minutes. Some of them are almost 2 hours. It just depends on the topic. And I've gone out and I did all of these myself, other than I have some that are kind of like bonuses where somebody like you, Vicky, came in and did a recording for us of, you know, kind of top level kinds of stuff. But at least 75 hours of those 90 hours that are out there are all QuickBooks based. And so that's a subscription type program. So you can get in for a month, or we've had people in it for several years because they like to use it as an ongoing training program. And there are lots of layers to accounting and job costing. And so they just, you know, they keep learning.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
Well, thank you. I know several people who have used your camp program and who have been super grateful for how much they've learned in the process of, as you said, you know, you kind of reach one level and then there's the next level. It's kind of like growing our businesses, right? So
exactly.
That's great. I'll make sure to leave the link for that. And I'm assuming the other way for people to get a hold of you, if they just have more questions or whatever, can you tell them what's the best way to reach you?
Sure. Now this should be good for the people in construction. Our website name is buildyournumbers.com. So you can interpret that in a number of different ways, hopefully to build your numbers and your profits. Okay. And so if you go out there, we also have a little quiz where you can, and Vicky, I think you'll put the link in for that. Yeah, for you can check your own profitability controls, and controls are just basically a way of saying, making sure the right things happen and the wrong things don't. So you can self-assess and see how you're doing.
Awesome. That's right. Yeah, that's a free tool. And I will make sure to include that link here. Diane, thank you so much. This is
you're so welcome.
Helpful. I really appreciate you. I appreciate the contribution that you make to the construction industry. I know that you have helped so many business owners run and more profitable, successful contracting business. I hope you found today's video and my interview with Diane to be helpful. Make sure to stay tuned for next week's video as we continue the series on how to plug the profit leaks in your contracting business. And in next week's video, I'm going to be talking about your financial reports and how to use them as a powerful management tool in being more profitable and more intentional about how you plan for profits in your contracting business. And in it, I'm actually going to share with you a resource where you're going to be able to get tools and tips that will help you in being able to analyze and look at your data and actually give you some benchmarks to use as well. So make sure to check that out. I look forward to seeing you then.